dear distinguished guests, esteemed professors, chief executives, honorable speakers, colleagues, friends, good morning. My name is Sharif Salau, and I shall be your compere for today. I must say it's a great pleasure and honor to welcome you to the second day of the Global Commercialization Conference and Workshop. Yesterday, we had discussions on rapid response systems and global cooperation against COVID-19, and we were shown some emerging technologies and innovative solutions to combat this global pandemic. Today, I am personally looking forward to the conversation that will unfold in the next few hours, as I hope that at the end of today, we will have shared COVID-19 response strategies and ICT convergence technologies that will promote global cooperation and collaboration in resolving the impending problems caused by the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you want to listen in English, please tune to channel 2 in your receiver, and in Korean, please tune to the channel 1. And to our friends and participants who are joining us online, we are very excited to have you here because we are aware that you're joining from different time zones from around the world. We are very grateful, and we are happy to have you as part of the conversation. We hope you're healthy and comfortable. Without much further ado, please join me in kicking start the second day of the Global Commercialization Conference and Workshop. In the first session today, together with chief executives and professors from around the world who are pioneering workshop breakthrough researches and designing novel solutions for combating global challenges around the world, we shall be discussing about startups, investments, and industrial environment changes in post-COVID-19 era. Guiding us through this session is going to be Dr. Young-Jung Park. Dr. Park is the former director of Korea IT Cooperation Center, Hanoi, which is an arm of the National IT Industrial Promotion Agency, NIPA, in Korea. Supporting Dr. Park will be Dr. Jong-Hoon Park, who is the Vice President of the Electronics and Telecommunication Research Institute, EDRI, here in Korea, and Mr. Ryu Jio, who is the General Manager for Korea Science and Technology Holdings. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Park.
Thank you for your kind introduction, and good morning to all, especially those who are joining us GCCW from Korea and Asia region. And we have some challenge for our session today because all of our speakers are joining us from the American region and who have, I understand, very early evening there. So there might be some kind of communication challenges, but we will go through this session with success as we will go through this COVID-19 challenge as well. So as Sheriff introduced our distinguished discussant today, they will make our session more helpful and dynamic and interesting. So we will have a full round of Q&A. And first Q&A is going to be followed by 3 presentations from the United States. And then the second round of Q&A is going to be followed by the presentation from Colombia. And then third one is followed by Mexico, who is going to overview of the investment in Latin America situations. And lastly, we will open for Q&A for the floor. So I think, but when you heard like United States, Colombia, and Mexico, they happen to be all on the top 10 list. Top 10 list of what? The COVID-19. So usually when you say you are on the top 10 list, that's a very exciting and honorable situation. But in this case, we have like different situations, so we will see how those stakeholders from the startup community are responding to this challenge. So welcome to our second session. And so this morning, we are going to start with the presentation from the University of Texas. And I understand Mr. Glenn Robinson the interim director of the Global Innovation Lab of University of Texas, is going to introduce their teams, and then they are going to have like 3 presentations in a row. So can I call Mr. Glenn? Glenn, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yes. Good evening to you all. Thank you for your waiting, and then hopefully we can manage this session with success. So, Glenn, shall we start?
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Park. I appreciate it. We are very pleased and privileged to be here and to participate in this conference. I applaud you all for taking this opportunity to pause and to discuss ways to move forward given the unique challenges of this time. And we're looking forward to sharing some of what we've done in our programs, specifically what we've done in those programs to adapt to COVID-19 and opportunities that we have found in the US market and ways to address those opportunities. So from a sort of a background standpoint, my name is Glenn Robinson. I'm the interim director of the Global Innovation Lab. And as all of us on this call, even though we represent an academic institution and one of the top research universities in the world, all of us are from a business background because our divisions and units within the university are focused on helping entrepreneurs around the world, both in the US as well as outside of the US boundaries, to assess markets and validate technologies and find opportunities to enter into those markets and become successful and generate jobs and wealth. That's really our focus. So my background is many years before joining the university in the private sector and some of the household names in the computer and high-tech industry, National Semiconductor, Apple Computer, Sun Microsystems, Dell Computer, and it was Dell that actually brought me to Texas, and I joined the University of Texas 12 years ago, focused on bringing all of that expertise that I had from entrepreneurship and innovation and corporate world into the university to help drive business opportunities for entrepreneurs. I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce the 2 other gentlemen who are joining me, colleagues of mine. Mr. Ian Hughes is Texas Global Program Manager for the Kai-Stai City Global Up Technology Commercialization Program. Ian also manages 2 commercialization programs in Japan and has a wealth of experience in managing and helping entrepreneurs in other countries get into the global and specifically the US market. Ian joined UT after having successfully run an aviation startup based in Austin, Texas. He has an extensive consulting background with international technology companies in Europe, North America, and Asia. Mr. Richard Amato is the Director of Strategic and Global Initiatives at the Austin Technology Incubator at the University of Texas at Austin, which is the first and longest running university incubator in the world. And he serves also as faculty for the University of Texas Austin McComb School of Business, leading a class called Global Connections, focused on entrepreneurship and sustainability. This unique course draws from his prior efforts with the Global Innovation Lab and the World Bank, connecting UT Austin students with entrepreneurs at InfoDev's climate innovation centers in Africa and around the world. Richard has entrepreneurial experience as well, having founded his own startup, Venti Energy, a renewable development company dedicated to increasing the supply of clean, reliable, and affordable energy. He is also the founding director of the Clean Energy Incubator at UT Austin, the first incubator of its kind dedicated to supporting sustainable ventures. And so it's our pleasure to be here this evening. I'd like to pass to Mr. Ian Hughes, who's going to lead us off with a presentation talking a bit about the programs in Korea and opportunities for Korean entrepreneurs in other countries around the world. So Ian, I'll pass the microphone to you.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak today, along with my colleagues from UT. Like Glenn said, my name is Ian Hughes. I currently run the Daejeon City Global Up Technology Commercialization Program in partnership with KAIST. We hope to give you an overview of the startup activity that the University of Texas at Austin is currently involved with. amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to give you a little bit of a background on Global Innovation Lab and Austin Technology Incubator and some of the things that have changed over the last 6 months. So the background is our group, Global Innovation Lab, was founded as the Global Commercialization Group, or GCG, as a part of the IC² Institute approximately 15 years ago, before the recent transition and rebranding of the Texas Global Innovation Lab. GCG, or GIL, have had programs in over 20 countries around the world. This includes startup programs with a wide variety of deliverables in countries like Poland and Kazakhstan and Chile and Kuwait. Currently, the Global Innovation Lab team has programs in South Korea, Japan, and India. We have ongoing conversations in Panama and Cyprus as well. Often these conversations are initiated by us or through local and regional governments who want to build and expand their startup ecosystems and economies. Overall, in spite of COVID-19, we're continuing to see strong interest in this model of technology commercialization and acceleration program in new areas of South Korea and elsewhere in the world. Just in the past month, we have secured a new program in Japan to provide technology commercialization training and other services in Tokyo to young Japanese entrepreneurs. Our programs in Korea have had many partners through the 12 or so years that we've been there. The first and largest program we had was with the Gyeonggi province. The provincial government brought GCG in to help assist some of the mid-sized manufacturers there move overseas to find customers and partners in the US. The program lasted over 10 years and recently concluded in 2018. We also had a shorter-lived program which was federally funded through KTEC. This was a program that lasted just 2 or 3 years, but was one where GCG was able to take mid-tier automotive suppliers in Korea that had no commercial route other than to sell into the big Korean automotive manufacturers and get them introduced and eventually adopted by US automotive suppliers like Delphi. Our technology and acceleration programs tend to begin with technology validation and screening stages, followed by business development and commercialization training. Once each of the applicant companies have been registered to the program, they are signed up for Innovation Readiness, which is our online training tool designed to give the basics of what is required to move a particular product or technology into an overseas market. Once we have reduced the number of companies, 2 GIL representatives will go to Korea or whatever market we're currently operating in to interview the companies and to tour their facilities during deep dive meetings. These meetings, which used to occur in person in Korea or elsewhere, have moved to a virtual setting during the COVID-19 pandemic. This has limited our ability to evaluate companies in a number of critical areas, including manufacturing capacity and the status of their inventories. During these deep dive meetings, GIL managers ask questions as to whether or not the companies are able to deliver on the claims they are making and how much they are committed to the overseas market. Many of the companies at this stage are still unaware of the competitive landscape that awaits them in the US, and part of the benefit of these meetings is so that the GIL personnel can explain what the current landscape is like and what the recommendations would be for the companies to move forward. At this stage, the selected companies would receive a quick look market validation assessment. GIL employs trained quick look authors that will examine each technology and seek out industry experts to determine whether or not this particular product would be a successful entrant into the US or other international market. Often the interviews are the most important piece of these reports. Industry experts from a variety of backgrounds are included in the interview sections, including potential customers, partners, and even competitors, as is the case of this slide. The resulting report takes these interviews and presents the themes to recommend a go or no-go recommendation for commercialization, which is used as a contributing factor in whether the company will move to the next stage of the program. At the conclusion of the Quick Look report authoring, the companies come to Austin for a combination of workshops, an ecosystem tour, one-on-one meetings and training, and eventually a pitch competition. At this workshop, the Quick Looks are delivered and the companies are challenged to incorporate all of the training and market feedback they've heard up until the point in the final pitch where a panel of judges will make the final grades on the companies and their ability to commercialize successfully in the United States. These two have gone virtual since the onset of COVID-19 to varying levels of success. We've done a number of notable deals throughout our time in Korea. None more notable than KTM Magnet signing a Space Act agreement with NASA. KTM Magnet was a two-man company that applied to our Gyeonggi-do program with a magnet technology. The father and son team had a background in electrical engineering and developed this magnet without a specific application in mind. Through our program, they were introduced to NASA at the Johnson Space Center, and 7 technical divisions within NASA expressed a strong interest in its inclusion in their operations. The Space Act agreement itself did not result in any revenue for KTM at the time, as NASA no longer invests directly in external technologies. But KTM's adoption by NASA made the local news in Korea, and they were able to leverage that deal into a $4 million equity investment by a Korean VC. Overall, Korean programs have had very positive results outside of just purchase orders and exports. As you can see here, in the 10-year span between 2008 and 2018, almost 2,000 companies were screened by GCG, with just about 10% of that overall number receiving business engagement agreements of some kind with an international partner in the US or elsewhere outside of Korea. Almost 700 entrepreneurs were trained in the skills necessary to take their products and companies to international markets. And over 200 companies received direct business development support for a US-based business development manager, which gave them direct, real-time market feedback on their products so they could make technical and strategic adjustments if necessary in order to be successful in the future. Ultimately, COVID-19 has accelerated certain areas of the global economy, and those are the areas that we're currently encouraging current startups in our program and future applicants to be focused on. The work at home, exercise at home, shop at home economic shift has moved companies like those seen here to 5x or 10x their size before the pandemic. COVID-19 has also changed our work in technology commercialization and our training and business development initiatives, while we have maintained our principled training methodologies. During this time, we have stressed the importance for startups to be disciplined in their business development practices as they present to new prospects. Effective communication and messaging is critical so salespeople and entrepreneurs are able to build trust prior to an in-person meeting. Startups have to be very clear in describing their value propositions when attempting to acquire a new customer via email, Zoom, or any other method available to them. From the University of Texas and Texas Global's perspective, our program's response to COVID-19 has been to increase the amount of training and services we offer virtually, building on the tools we had that had already been included in our programs in the past. Zoom-based webinars for training, our Innovation Readiness online training program, as well as the newly developed Texas Global Virtual Exchange have all seen significant increase in activity. And with that, I'd like to invite Glenn to elaborate on some of these initiatives from Texas Global. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. I appreciate that. A couple of things should be said in a preamble to this presentation, and that is that the University of Texas has always been a leader in virtual content delivery. Not just the Global Commercialization Group, IC Squared, and Texas Global and the Global Innovation Lab, but across all of the schools, or many of the schools and faculties within the university itself. Pre-COVID-19, we were already delivering virtual content in visual and performing arts, in the humanities, poli-sci, history, mathematics, natural sciences and technology, and social and behavioral sciences. Professors were utilizing technologies at their disposal during that time period. Now, obviously, Zoom was not available, but Skype and even cell phones were being used to communicate with students in one-on-one mentoring kinds of environments. Canvas and other tools were available, and so we have some background there. Now, when COVID-19 came on the scene, we had the infrastructure there, we had the knowledge, and so the change to delivering all of our courses in virtual format was relatively I'm going to use the word easy, although nothing is easy in COVID-19. But we had the IT infrastructure. We'd already anticipated that with prior delivery mechanisms, and so we were set to go. Today, we're cautiously moving to a hybrid model, what's called a hybrid model. About 10-15% of our courses are contemplated to be delivered in person, and we're monitoring that very carefully because the first and foremost area of concern is the health and well-being of both our students and faculty members and staff. And so as things change, we will change, but we have all of the mechanisms in place to be able to react quickly. And we have already done one semester of full in-person virtual delivery, and it was quite successful. In 2017, we launched a program called the Texas Global Virtual Exchange, again, prior to COVID-19. This program connects UT Austin faculty with peers around the world to co-develop and co-teach virtual modules. There's a high level of engagement directly between faculty and students, as well as faculty with their peers delivering these courses in multiple countries. So far to date, UT faculty have delivered over 30 courses, serving more than 1,000 students across 7 UT colleges and schools. And their peers in 15 countries on 6 continents are also actively involved in delivering this content in tandem with the UT faculty. And the Texas Global Virtual Exchange is forecasted to grow and include more modules and courses this coming year as part of the COVID-19 adaptation period. In about the year 2000 or so, maybe prior to that, the Masters of Science in Technology Commercialization, or MSTC, was launched. It's a 1-year intensive master's course that teaches students how to bring new technology products to market, evaluate real-world technologies for commercial viability, and learn the next steps to launch a new product or service, including building finances, marketing plan, business plan, and a go-to-marketing strategy. It should be mentioned that the Masters of Science in Technology Commercialization was originally envisaged to be a course for professionals who desire to come back to the university and learn how to do intrapreneurship, which is entrepreneurship within a corporate environment. And that was the case in the first few cohorts of MSTC, but the reputation grew because it was a 1-year intensive master's course, and because of the success of the attendees from IBM and Dell and AMD and some of the household names in the large corporate space around the world, students got an increasingly active interest in taking this course. And so now, about 35 to 40% of the students that are taking the MSTC are coming directly from an undergraduate course and going into the MSTC along with their professional counterparts. Now you can imagine the synergies that happen as students begin to work with professionals who are in the areas of their particular sectors and markets that they have an interest in. Most of the content of the MSTC is online and has been virtual since the inception because you have students that are studying from beyond. And so it was used really as one of the test cases to sort of work out the bugs of, as it were, of virtual content delivery much before the COVID-19 issue was even a challenge for us. Currently, our MSTC program is the #6 entrepreneurship program in the US, so it's continuing to be quite successful in virtual form. Ian mentioned the Innovation Readiness Series, which was launched in 2009. It's an online 10-module self-paced entrepreneurship training program that trains entrepreneurs in the basic building blocks to creating and maintaining a high-impact entrepreneurial venture. We've trained tens of thousands of startups in over 40 countries through the Innovation Readiness Series as part of our programs, and its reputation continues to grow. We've obviously encountered issues midstream in some of our programs. Programs that were launched, they were launched with the idea that everything would be delivered in person, and all of a sudden, travel was canceled, borders were shut, and we had to figure out what we would do. One of the things that we've done with great success is using webinars to deliver content. And I'll just mention briefly one of the examples is the Breaking the Glass Ceiling program. It's a women's entrepreneurship program in West Bengal state in India. And we had to actually move all of the in-person workshops and a pitch competition online. It was tremendously successful. We had tens of thousands of folks who actually observed these sessions through the embassy's Facebook Live program. This is done in concert with the U.S. mission, the consulate in Kolkata in India. So not only was COVID-19 not a detriment to the program, but it also offered us an opportunity to touch many thousands of people who otherwise would not have been privy to the content that we were delivering to these women entrepreneurs. And so it's just been we've sort of been flying on our own airline, using the technologies to deliver content and helping entrepreneurs understand how important that can be in pivoting their own businesses to be successful. Okay. So Ian, I'm going to now switch over to my presentation. I appreciate you letting me borrow that slide for a second. And so let's...
Hi, Glenn, but I have to let you know we have a very limited time. So, okay. Including you and Richard, we have to finish up within 15 minutes. Could you manage that?
We can do many things.
Okay,
sure.
That would be very appreciated.
Let's see if we can do that. And somehow I'm having a challenge sharing my screen. I don't know why that is.
Probably like 3 minutes for you and 10 minutes for Richard.
Yeah, Richard, why don't you take over for me, and I'll let you talk about ATI, and then I'll come back in at the end.
Certainly, certainly. Thank you. Let me get my screen up. Thank you very much, Glenn. I appreciate that introduction. It's great. I used to work with Glenn and Ian in the Global Commercialization Group, and it's great to see them again. I am now working with the Austin Technology Incubator, as Glenn mentioned, and I'm the Director of Strategic and Global Initiatives. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about ATI and what we do, also tell a few stories and some of the transitions we've had to make through COVID. But before I jump into that, as Glenn mentioned, I actually teach a course called Global Connections, where we go in country. I've been leading the course on entrepreneurship sustainability. We've been going into country in Africa. This past year, we were actually in country in Rwanda, in the eastern part of Rwanda, at Akagera National Park with 20 students when we were called back due to the pandemic. And the interesting thing is, in that class, one of the highlights is for the companies for the students to be able to meet with the entrepreneurs that they're working with in country. And they never got that opportunity as we were traveling to Kenya next, where they were going to meet with the Kenya CIC, Climate Innovation Center. However, once we got back in country, we actually just very seamlessly shifted to where the students met up with their companies and did all of their presentations via either Microsoft Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Google Meets, or what have you. So fortunately, through the technology, we were able to make that happen. As far as the technology incubator, we are the business incubator of the University of Texas at Austin. We are, as Glenn mentioned, the oldest continuous running business incubator, having launched in 1989, 31 years ago. And we have a focus around deep tech. And our mission is really empowering entrepreneurs, not just within the university, but within the community as well. The majority, probably 80% of the companies we work with, actually come from the community rather than the university. And most of those that do come from the university come from students starting companies more so than researchers starting companies. Here are just some numbers. I won't go through them, but you can see some of the numbers of the economic impact that we've had of over $3 billion, nearly $2 billion in funds raised and such. So we actually are funded not from the university alone, but through both local, at the city level, at the state level, and at the federal level, funds because of the economic impact we do have. As far as our focal areas, we've been a general incubator over the years until I actually was brought in as Glenn mentioned in 2001 to launch the first ever clean energy incubator. We've now focused in two primary areas: healthcare, which was launched in 2008, and sustainability, which is basically the rest of those. Out of clean energy, we've broken water, food and ag tech, mobility, circular economy. So those two areas, healthcare and sustainability, is what we focus on these days. And as far as the level of companies we work with, we're usually working with early stage companies that are beyond proof of concept or at proof of concept, looking to raise their first seed round. They may have already raised founding dollars, but they're looking to raise seed. And we usually work through them until they've raised Series A and they've got first revenue and actually getting commercialized into market. This is a list of some of our current member companies. We typically have about, give or take, 2 dozen, so 20, 25 companies in at any one time. And we work closely with the university. Glennie and I, as I mentioned, have worked closely together. I talked about the class I teach. We also, Blackstone, which is a venture group, has helped sponsor the Blackstone Launchpad, which is an entrepreneurial community on campus, a resource where students can go, and there's workshops, there's classes, there's mentors like myself and others that can help support them as they're looking to launch businesses. Overall, the UT Austin ecosystem is very robust. These organizations alone are just from the university within Austin. And basically what we've seen is all of the colleges, all of the schools have developed their own innovation group. There is a entrepreneurial committee that basically ties all of these together and meets on a monthly basis. We used to meet in person. Now through COVID, we're actually meeting virtually, so it hasn't really slowed us down any from that perspective. And in addition, as I mentioned, to the university, we have most of our focus is within the community itself. And within Austin, here's just a very small part of the Austin ecosystem that we will work with. And you can see several, there's municipal utilities like Austin Energy and the State Energy Conservation Office. There's other incubators and accelerators like Tarmac and Capital Factory. There's organizations for manufacturing to help companies build products, investors, funder base, South by Southwest, which is a big event around driving adoption and such. So it's a very, very strong and robust ecosystem. And one of the things that we've seen is, unfortunately, through COVID, all of the meetups and all of the networks and all of the gatherings have really ceased to exist on a face-to-face basis. But very quickly, we've been able to transition to a virtual basis. And through unique tools, whether it be Zoom like we're using today, or some of the more unique ones that have come out in the last few months, like Hop-In, or I was just on an event yesterday in Rima where it's trying to recreate that in-person networking as close as possible. We're actually trying to continue to drive that because in our ecosystem, it's really about the atoms colliding and the people getting together. So I'm kind of rushing through this to give Glenn time. One thing I want to end on is a new initiative we've just launched called TexGHS, which is the Texas Global Health Security Innovation Consortium. It's really about spearheading health security innovation to address readiness, response, recovery. Our director of healthcare, Lisa McDonald, is actually launching this with her husband, who actually run Pandemitech, which is an organization they founded actually years ago to address pandemics. And with everything that's going around right now, we're seeing a lot of traction. These are just some of the organizations that are involved in supporting TexGHS, which is looking at coming up with not just technology solutions, but also societal solutions to help address resiliency, whether it be around natural disasters, pandemics, or what have you. And so, Glenn, I'm going to turn it back over to you now so that you've got some time to finish up.
Dr. Park, I want to be sensitive to time, and I know that I'm sure that there are attendees who have questions and would like to ask those questions. And so I want to just get a time check from you, and you let me know how you'd like to proceed from here.
Yes, I think 3 minutes for you would be perfect. And since your presentation was about the advice for startups for the global market entry, so maybe you can add some perspective of how they cope with the COVID pandemic challenges. Maybe for 3 minutes, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So I'm hoping that you can see my screen that we've transitioned, yeah? So as entrepreneurs, you've come on a journey, and that journey is taking you from an idea, an innovative concept, through to the creation of jobs and wealth. But on every entrepreneurial journey, and those of us who have been entrepreneurs know this and have the scars to prove it, you'll reach a gap somewhere where all of a sudden things are not as you thought they might be. And you're going to need to be careful, otherwise otherwise you may feel a bit like our friend here, Mr. Y chromosome, who is jumping off of the cliff with a box of plane parts, and as he speeds rapidly to the ground, he's putting together the airplane. This is really entrepreneurship in a nutshell. This is what happens to us. This is the experience that we have. And so we need to be prepared to put that plane together to be able to get some traction and liftoff before the ground comes up to meet us. And I wanted to give just some fatherly advice to those of you who are entrepreneurs that may help you. The importance of mitigating risk cannot be understated. And there are 4 areas that I'll touch on just very briefly. And that's what we call magic, market, management, and money. These 4 areas will require you to be acutely focused on how to address those to make the most of your opportunity in a highly competitive market. You must mitigate that risk. So how do we reduce the magic risk? First of all, you've got to get a product that's good enough. Oftentimes we get caught in analysis paralysis and we don't want to get it out into the market. We want to make one more change or one more modification. But you're going to have to get it into the market and then let the market give you feedback on whether or not it's good enough. And those of us who have used Apple and Microsoft products know that corporations have built entire fortunes on releasing products that were good enough but needed to be modified. The second is that you're going to have to understand the trends. What's happening in the market? What's happening in the world? One of the key learnings for us in COVID-19 as we did our webinars with entrepreneurs was we got questions about how do we survive? It's so difficult now to get customers, to get funding. What should we do? And we spent a lot of time working with the entrepreneurs to understand what are the trends in the market and how can they as entrepreneurs collaborate together to pivot and make the right decisions to align with those trends and make some money. A quick example, we have a company that does textiles in India, and they've decided to stop making shirts and pants and undergarments and make masks for their countrymen. And that's been a nice revenue stream that's allowing them to get through this pandemic with some revenue and money in their pocket. So trends are important. It's also important to have partners, manufacturing partners, marketing partners, distribution partners, those who can help you in areas where you don't have the expertise. And then finally, find yourself a good attorney. If you have a product that can be protected, you have intellectual property, you want to make sure that you're making the right decisions on intellectual property protection to protect you as you go into the market. So let's talk about the market risks. One way to mitigate problems and challenges in the market is to talk to lots of people. By this we mean customer validation. One of my mentors once told me that there are three keys to successful sales, Glenn. Talk to lots of people, be real nice, and give good service. If you do those 3 things, customers will come to you. And so you want to talk to lots of people and get validation. Ian talked about that process that we do with all of our entrepreneurs as we work in our programs. In parallel, you want to build your know-how network. Who are the folks that you need to augment your skill set? Marketing companies, social media developers, networking of various types, lawyers, manufacturers, distributors. You want to build that network. The third is to seek advice on a go-to-market strategy. Look to others who have more experience than you in how to attack the market and then devise a strategy that's well-positioned and has intelligent feedback in inspiring that go-to-market strategy. So look to others to help you.
Hi, Glenn. Yeah, so I understand the market risk is going to be very substantial because of this COVID-19 pandemic, the market is shrinking right now. So it will be very relevant for startups to cope with this kind of challenge. So because of our limited time, me switch to Q&A round. And so let me invite some questions from our distinguished discussant. And so first discussant, the Mr. Park Jong-hong, who is from ATRI, who has a very in-depth R&D background from the government dimension. Okay.
Okay, thank you for having me here in Korea, here today. And my name is Jong Park, and I'm also in charge of technology commercialization in my company. So I was very interested in your, comment and the presentation regarding to the, technology commercialization post COVID-19. Actually, I had, planned to ask a question, but due to the lack of the time, I'd like to make some comment on your presentations. Nowadays, we face a lot of uncertainties. So regarding my job, I also thinking about, program upgrade or new, new strategies for the, post-COVID-19. So I have reviewed your biographs, and I found, some of your comments regarding to the movement from the offline business to online business, or, virtual format, something like that. But those kind of things are not enough for the future, because we're going to have a lot of changes at post-COVID-19. So myself and in UT Austin, all members should think about, should consider the new programs and new approach of the technology commercialization regarding to the post-COVID-19 pandemics. Okay, that's all of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for...
Can I make a comment in response?
Yes, please, Glenn.
So it's the case, and the numbers are proven that over 93% of all new ideas fail. This was prior to COVID-19. It's a very tough statistic for entrepreneurs to swallow, realizing that you've only got a 7% chance of actual success. And I don't think that will change much in COVID-19 times if companies are nimble enough to assess the market, build networks and partnerships, and pivot. Pivoting is critical. And I absolutely agree with the comments that you made that the business model will need to change. Partnerships are even more important. We found in India that there's a saying that a rope of many strands is not easily broken. So we've partnered, and we've done intentional partnering to put like companies together whose future might not be secure alone, but partnering with someone else who can add that additional value has allowed them as an entity to partner together to be successful. And that's something that folks like you and we are going to have to do intentionally, because oftentimes entrepreneurs don't think of it on their own.
Yeah, I understand, because the term of the globalization has been getting more popular in this global market these days. Okay, so our second discussant, the Mr. Yoo Ji-ho from the Korea Science Technology Holdings Company. Again, this is more like public-private partnership institution, but who has more investors' perspective. Yeah, Mr. Ryu.
It is my honor to have a chance to give my question. I have a question to Ian, because you must have much of experience in cooperating with the Korean companies to help them to penetrate U.S. market.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So I'm also working for incubating startup companies and investment. What changes in your program for international cooperation in your department? And what industries will get the most impacted negatively or perhaps positively, if any? I need your advice.
That's a very good question. I think we're seeing a sort of a seismic shift right now in the global economy from an analog and in-person economy to a digital and virtual economy. So regardless of the industry, regardless of the technology, if the startup or the entrepreneur comes without some sort of idea of digitizing, or at least a complementary virtual type technology that they're going to add to their business model, they're going to really struggle moving forward. So in the past, we've seen a lot of industrial equipment come from South Korea, and they were very successful through our programs in achieving first-time installations in manufacturing plants and water treatment plants and such. And really what they're going to have to do is sort of move beyond, or it's not even that they haven't addressed this already. They had addressed it, but they hadn't prioritized it. And this is not just for South Korea. This is across the world, right? So just as you see the reaction in all of the global financial markets, companies that were deprioritized prior to the pandemic because they were totally virtual were just shot ahead 10 years effectively because everybody shifted within a few weeks to an online and virtual setting. So any type of equipment that would require man hours and in-person maintenance and in-person sort of operations without a virtual app or some kind of a digital option to operate that is going to fall behind and eventually going to struggle. And they're going to have to come to market with those peripheral functionalities already developed as part of their core business plan. Not saying, oh yeah, we have that, in mind for the future. No, that has got to be fully developed as they approach international investors and partners and eventually customers.
Thank you for your cooperation to meet this very strict time frame. And we will go back to like a Q&A later if we manage the two other sessions. So let's move to our presenter from Colombia, Mr. Juan Carlos Suarez, Director of Legal Office of Innovation, Intellectual Property, and Tech. He is from Bosco University, Colombia.
Thank you very much. Annyeonghaseyo is the only word that I know. Thank you very much for this invitation. Really it's a pleasure for me to be part of this international and very important event. I have to say, before to start my lecture, that I have been a couple times in Korea. I love your country. Unfortunately, this time I can't visit because of the COVID, but I hope to visit again Korea next year. Okay, I'm going to share my presentation. Okay, firstly, I would like to talk a little bit about the context of my institution, the organization that I am representing this event. The Bosco University is a private Colombian university. We are located in Bogotá, Colombia, the capital. Recently, we created a hub of innovation in the framework of the most important innovation and entrepreneurship program of the government. Its name is Semprende. We have a strategic connection with the entire innovation ecosystem, both private and public, not only in Colombia. We have very strong relationships with public and private institutions in Peru, and also in Ecuador, and of course all other countries in the region. In our frequently job, we are monitoring industrial opportunities and needs to connect local, regional, and international research and development capacities. That is an important context why we're here representing this organization and why we are talking in this important event. And of course, we are working as a regional contact in Colombia of case GCC, and we hope to work a lot in these next months and of course in the 2021. Well, I'm going to talk about these 6 points in my lecture. First, I would like to talk a little bit about the current situation in Colombia, but not in a health perspective. I want to talk about the current situation in Colombia from an industrial perspective. So I prepared these 5 points from the official data of our National Administrative Department of Statistics. So let's talk a little bit about the current situation. The national economy decreased more than 7% in this first semester of the year because of the COVID. The 3 economic activities more affected as a consequence of the pandemic was the commerce, the manufacturing industry, and the construction. Bear in mind that in February of this year, before the pandemic, we are expecting a big year for our industry. Actually, in February, the industrial production reflected an increase of more than 4.5%. So our sectors in the industry were expecting big opportunities this year. However, because of the pandemic, most of our sectors, actually in June 2020, at mid of this year, 30 of our 39 industrial sectors in Colombia reflected an important negative economic impact in comparison to the last year. So the pandemic have affected in a have a real impact in our industrial in a negative perspective. But let's talk about how the things are changing in terms of industry in Colombia. All the actors, including both and public sector, are adapting and adjusting to this new context. The small and medium enterprises, the universities, actually the public institutions are working with the aim to adapt the situation, adapt the business models, adapt the operative matter to the current situation. The digital transformation has been a big challenge, I have to say, because for example, the education sector, the public sector in general, the health sector were not prepared to apply the digital transformation. So if you see the positive impact of the COVID, we can say that because of the COVID, we are accelerating the digital transformation in Colombia. So this part is very important because I'm going to talk later about the opportunities. And I think this crisis in Colombia, at the same time, is a big opportunity to connect to local entities, but also regional and of course international entities. What else is happening in Colombia in terms of the industry? The activities of research and development has been focused to solve technical problems, not only during pandemic, but also we are projecting what is going to happen after the pandemic. So the research and development activities are trying to focus to that kind of problematic. The companies and universities, I have to say that nowadays are trying to work together because they are exploring new opportunities in order to develop or co-develop technological products in this context, not only with partners in Colombia, but also they are very interested, to work with regional or international partners. And in addition, I have to say that the priorities of the industrial sectors, of course, have changed according to a new context. Many companies in Colombia now are working to reconduce all the capacities to get opportunities with relation to the new context. With regard to technology and investment changes, I want to share with you that the companies and entrepreneurship, of course, are adapting their business models, mainly to the fourth industrial revolution technologies. The small and medium enterprises are trying to take advantage of these new technologies, but I have to say that the entrepreneurships have an easier way to do it, because our small and medium enterprises still are needing more help, not only from the public sector, but also to the private sector. And they need connections with companies that already know how to apply the fourth industrial revolution technologies. For example, the artificial intelligence, the blockchain, big data, cloud computing, because they are being considered the key elements for this new context. In addition, I can say that the technology trends in Colombia has been changed, of course, because of the pandemic. And currently, we are demanding technology, mainly regarding to devices, digital platforms for education, for entertainment, of course, working connectivity technologies, banking services, the line of the healthcare and the digital information security are some of the more technologies demands that we are reflecting in Colombia. Here we can see some of the most important organizations with regard to startup ecosystem in Colombia. Impulsa and Se Emprende is the program that I mentioned. Impulsa is our unit of the government in charge of the promotion to the entrepreneurship in Colombia, and nowadays have an important and very medular role in Colombia, because they are Impulsa is trying to impulse many startups and entrepreneurships according to the new needs because of the pandemic. If we talk about the innovation ecosystem and the technology transfer, that is one of my specific roles, not only in the university, but also in the ecosystem in Colombia. I can say that the innovation ecosystem nowadays is very active. We have a strong relation between actors from the public and private sector. The public funds for research and development in Colombia, but also in some countries like Peru, Ecuador, has been focused to solve problematics caused by the pandemic. The technological trends expected for Colombia by the next year, I can say that cover the digital platform for teleworking, the virtual dance, some platforms for academia, for education, banking services, the health services platforms, artificial intelligence development, of course, Internet of Things, and others like data security, computer simulation. I want to share with you this message because in Colombia, the ecosystem of innovation is very active, but we are needing good relationships with actors, not only local, regional, but also international, like I said before. This is, for example, one of the first public announcements that our Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation made on March, when the pandemic just started in Colombia. And the Minister of Science, Technology of Colombia destined almost $7 million to fund projects to develop technologies to solve problematics caused by the COVID-19. This is only one example, but for example, if you check nowadays the public announcements that we are dealing with, you can find different kinds of opportunities that if you explore, you can take advantage with a partnership with our local companies, with our local universities. But I think if we consider that this is a good opportunity to take advantage of the funds, but also to develop real products to manage problematics caused by the COVID, I can say that this is a good opportunity to make good relationships also. If we talk about the forecasting business opportunities, I want to say firstly that we have important information about Colombia, like investing destiny, because in the last 5 years, Colombia has been the third major receptor of reinvestment in the region after Brazil and Mexico. Colombia is the fourth economy in the region with more facilities to make business. With regard to protection to the investor, Colombia had the first place in the region, according to the Doing Business Guide of the World Bank. And I can say that the agriculture and the technology sector are considered as an important source of economic opportunities after the pandemic. So this is an initial message that I want to share with you, that the agriculture sector, but also the technology sector, are considered some of the most important sectors to make business in Colombia.
You have 2 minutes, Juan.
Okay, thank you. Just 2 slides more. What is happening with the business in Colombia during the pandemic? I want to share with you that the business keeps going in Colombia. Colombia keeps being an interesting destination for reinvestment, because from January to April of this year, during the pandemic, we received important investment to give support to 45 new projects, mainly to technology and technology transfer and development. According to the Central Bank of Colombia, between January to April of this year, we received $3,500 million more in comparison to the last year. That reflects the dynamic, a very important dynamic of reinvestment in Colombia. And I have to say that the agricultural sector, manufacturers and services are the industrial sectors with more investment during this first semester. And finally, I want to say that as conclusion of my presentation, I can say that we can consider that there are a lot of important opportunities in Colombia to make business, to get technology from Korea, but of course from other countries. We have an important dynamic of technology demand from the public and private sector. The main sector of technology demand are health, education, agriculture, healthcare, banking services. The innovation ecosystem is very active in Colombia. We have organizations that promote these kind of projects, innovation, entrepreneurship, but also we have universities prepared to make a relationship and partnership with international institutions. And finally, The research and development offer and demand is ready to make partnership, both from public and private sector. So I think the COVID has generated a crisis in general, but at the same time has generated an important opportunity, and I can say it's accelerating the network to take advantage of this opportunity by means the international relation cooperation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation in time. And because of the limited time, let me just invite the question from Dr. Park Jong-hong about your presentation then.
Okay.
Dr. Park?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And I completely agree. Your comment on the business opportunity in the future. We need more technologies and more technology commercializations to overcome the economic crisis caused by COVID-19. But unfortunately, I guess there are going to be some downsizing of the funding or investment in the future due to the negative economic growth in the world. So we need some trade-off or optimization between two factors. Increasing business opportunity, but downsizing of the investment due to the economic crisis. So I want to hear from you about your ideas or comment on that two paradox.
I want to say something. I completely agree with you, and actually I want to share an experience, not only in Colombia, but also information that I have from other countries like Peru. And it's that before the pandemic, many institutions, universities, for example, private research institutions, were trying to work together, but sometimes the relationships were not too easy because they are trying to solve many kind of problems, different kind of problems. Sometimes they were working in the same technology, but with the different ways, with the different forces. After the pandemic or during the pandemic, many universities, at least in Colombia, had to organize, have to take advantage of the funds, to take more advantage of the capacities, the time, and now they are working together. So they have to explore the opportunities to develop real products, not only ideal products. They are working in products that now they have more opportunities to be commercial size because they start from real problems. Before, many universities were trying to develop products that maybe other people in other countries have developed already. So I think this is a good opportunity to work together, and of course the invitation to receive support from Korea and other countries, and to work in middle of this crisis.
Thank you for your answer. So finally, let's move on to our last presentation. Mr. Diego Serabrisky. He's the co-founder and managing partner for Dallas Capital from Mexico. He's going to talk about opportunities in Latin America. Again, the more perspective from investors. Diego, could you please start?
Good morning, and thanks for the invitation from being at this conference. Let me share my screen. I suppose probably you're seeing now. As you mentioned, the topic I want to share is what are the opportunities that we see in the post-COVID time in Latin America. Let me start very briefly with who we are. We are a venture capital fund based in Mexico, but investing in the whole region of Latin America, where we look to invest in high growth companies, in startups that are differentiated through technology. We manage $150 million in 2 different funds. And we invest in what is called typically the stages of Series A and Series B, with tickets that go from $1 to $10 million. We look to invest in 4 investment themes, which are digital consumers, business productivity, solutions for businesses from SMBs to enterprise level, inclusion, which is solutions in finance, education, health, and work opportunities. And finally, in what we call climate innovation, which are startups using technology to reduce emissions or to adapt to the climate change. Now, Latin America, it's a huge market opportunity for Korean entrepreneurs and Korean startups. The total size of the economy in the region is around $6 trillion. That is probably around 3 times the size of the Korean economy. That economy represents around 600 million in population, of which 70% are connected to the internet. Mostly they are connected through mobile phones, smartphones, as in most areas of the world. And to give you a sense, 57% of the population is on Facebook. In fact, Latin America is one of the regions that has higher adoption of some of the social media compared to other places. Now, COVID has hit the region very bad. Why? Because Latin America, and we call it LAC, like Latin America and Caribbean, is one of the most unequal regions in the world. And the pandemic has been very bad, especially for the people in cities. And the pandemic has generated a complex scenario in terms of the economics, the social, and the political situation in some of the countries. To give you a sense, and that was mentioned at the beginning of this session, Brazil is the number 2 country in terms of COVID cases, and Mexico, Chile, Colombia, and Peru are all in the top 10. So is the region, as I say, is where you see most of the cases, and then if you add the US, for sure the Americas is having the first prize in COVID, which probably I'm not sure that it's so good, but for sure it will generate opportunities for many of you if you want to look at this region. Besides the health impact of the crisis, this is going to have an economic impact in the region. And you can see on the chart on the left that it's expected that Latin America is one of the worst hit regions in terms of the economic impact. And even when we see country by country, most of them are expecting to have between a 7 to 10, or in some cases 12% decrease or a negative growth this year because of COVID. To put this in context, if we look at how the GDP has moved over the years, and we have here from 1900, this will be the worst crisis that the region has seen in terms of economic decrease. Now, I think for what probably can be the most interesting for many of you that are attending is what is happening and where the opportunities are being created. As some of the previous speakers have mentioned, many of the countries have to implement strict lockdowns where people have to stay at home and work from home, and that is still continues. And you can see that most of us are calling from our houses into this, not from our offices. And that is having a very clear change in consumer behavior during these months, and with a strong expectation that that will continue over time. The combination of people staying at home and the economic impact with unemployment that has increased and the decrease in the economy are making consumers looking for value and more concern on the economic benefit of whatever product they are buying rather than on the more kind of brand side. The second thing is there is an acceleration in the digitalization. Most people will say that we have jumped ahead probably between 3 to 6 years in the adoption of technology. And that is happening at the level of e-commerce, it's happening at the level of other digital offerings, it's happening at the level of entertainment, it's happening at the level of education, to give you some examples. So this, for sure, is creating significant opportunities for all those entrepreneurs that are developing new solutions, new offerings, new products that for this new digital consumer. Latin America traditionally has been slower in adopting technology compared to other regions, especially to Asia. This period of forced quarantine is making people more comfortable, adopting quickly, and also is making them get to know what it means to acquire digital products. Other trend is clearly home consumption has increased, logically, and I'll show you some statistics on how e-commerce is increasing. And also what we have seen is, most workers that can work from home, and that is more of the kind of office work, is still being doing from home. And that has a significant impact for businesses that have to adapt to this work from home trend very quickly in a matter of 1 to 2 weeks, in most cases during March. And it will continue, and it will have an impact on the office real estate going forward, how companies decide to organize their workforce, and we think that it's a behavior change that is here to stay for a significant portion of the population. Then other behaviors that we're starting to see that we think are relevant. The consumers are going to be more sensitive to health and security. I think, and this is probably happening not only in Latin America, but all over the world. Like COVID is making people more conscious about the importance of health, and also will have impacts on how that health and well-being is being delivered to those consumers. We think that there will be a change in preference and going more to value as opposed to other factors. And finally, we think that the relevance of social responsibility in fact, of what we call the ESGs is going to increase after this crisis, when I think a lot of businesses and consumers understood that they need to be more conscious and
Diego,
more aware and more responsible about their environment.
Diego, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
Very quickly, to give you a sense of what we have been living, Latin America had probably one of the lowest penetration of e-commerce before this pandemic. As a region, in a few months, the volume of e-commerce multiplied by 2.3 times. And in some countries, it went to 5 times or 9 times. What are the sectors where we think there are opportunities for Korean entrepreneurs? A lot of verticals of deep tech, from healthcare, microelectronics, semiconductors, manufacturing, chemicals. We see there are opportunities to bring those products to the Latin American businesses. And we think there are opportunities going both ways in gaming, entertainment, fintech, blockchain, and some other vertical. Now, why in part, why I'm presenting here? Because we have been working together with our Korean partners, a group called LNS VC, which is a venture capital fund based in Korea, similar to us. And we together are building a cross-border fund, Korea and Latin America. This is being sponsored by Born to Global from Korea and the Inter-American Development Bank in Latin America. The idea of this fund will be a venture capital fund that will invest in Korean startups looking for business opportunities and to expand to Latin America, and also the other way around. The idea of this fund is to invest in startups in typically Series A, and the idea would be to do initial investments around $1.5 million, together with bringing other co-investors for larger rounds. Our objective is not only to provide capital for these startups, but also help them in the soft landing into Latin America. And the plan is that probably we should start investing in the second quarter of, say 2020, should say 2021 of next year. So to finalize, if you are a Korean startup and you are interested in doing business in Latin America, don't wait until the second quarter of next year. Start contacting us now. You can contact me in Dallas, and you have there on the screen the email to reach me also, or you can contact Mr. Hansol Shin from LNS VC in Korea, and also you have the email to write to him. If you want to know more about the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Latin America, I invite you to see my blog, and you can see the address there. And please contact us if you are interested in this market and bringing your startup here, and we should start talking soon, and hopefully we can help you do that soon.
Yeah, thank you for your cooperation. We will definitely reach you out. Okay, so we will have the questions from Dr. Yu Ji-ho from the Korea Science Technology Holdings. Dr. Liu?
Thank you for your presentation, and really appreciated on the analysis of industries in the future after COVID-19. I also agree with e-commerce and healthcare will be become more important And I also pleased to know you are cooperating with the LNS Venture Capital. I know them very well, and we had co-invested same companies, and they are really good. Will be good partner for you. In the view of the growth stage of companies, actually most of companies are suffered by COVID-19, but like a startup and small and medium-sized company and matured big company, as an investor, one option is to invest startup companies and make a market more competitive. Or the other option is to invest more huge amount of investment to small and medium-sized companies to get more competitiveness, because most of all companies are suffered. So it is also a good chance for them to get more market or hire more employees. So I want to get your advice on the strategy of investment.
Yes, sure. No, I agree with you. Our strategy, as I say, one of the investment themes that in which we invest is business productivity, and there we look to identify startups with software or SaaS solutions, software as a service solutions, for companies, from small companies, SMBs, to enterprise level, and with the idea that these solutions will help their customers become more productive. I think it's a trend that in Latin America we are behind other regions. Companies have been less or slower to adopt technology, but the trend was there, and it's being accelerated by COVID. So we think a lot of opportunities for software solutions that will make companies more productive. I think for me, one of the big consequences of this crisis is that we are going to become more digital as consumers and as businesses.
Well, with the comment from Diego, we are finishing up this very challenging session, because we are supposed to open up our Q&A session to the floor, but because of the time constraint, we cannot go for that one. We will obviously do that for our second session this morning. But also, it was my pleasure to moderate with you, and it's been probably very challenging for you. This is kind of like a dinner time. So after this session, you can go back to your dinner. And it was my pleasure to work with you, and hopefully we can extend this dialogue both online and offline after COVID-19. And so let's have a round of applause for our speakers who are joining us from the America region. Thank you. And also, I'd like to thank for those who are joining us online here in Korea and also other regions as well. Thank you for attending this session, and we will continue with our second session from the perspective of the startup ecosystem, but that session will be communicated in Korean because we are going to have more Korean speakers, but we will definitely offer the English translation as well. Thank you.
Dear all, you will agree with me that the challenges that the COVID-19 poses is a global one, as beyond borders, and as such, it's very important for us to share. There's no better time for us to look beyond borders and share our experiences. So as such, once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Ian Hooks, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Amato, Mr. Carlos Suarez, and Mr. Cerebrisky for sharing your experience. And at this point, I think it's important to note and thank our participants online who are joining us from around the world. And Annyeonghaseyo, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're fine. Thank you for joining us. At this point, we are going to proceed on a 10 minutes break, and please stay tuned, guys, online. So we'll be back here by 10:40. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Pleasure working with you guys. I assume we're done?
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Good luck.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Take care.
You guys have a good evening.
Yep.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
See everyone.